The 12 Dancing Princesses. First moment, the mysterious worn-out shoes. In a magnificent kingdom ruled by a wise but troubled king, there lived 12 beautiful princesses, each more lovely than the last. Their names were Amelia, Beatrice, Cordelia, Diana, Evangeline, Felicity, Genevieve, Helena, Isabella, Josephine, Catherine, and Lillian. They were known throughout the land for their grace, beauty, and kindness, but also for a most peculiar mystery that baffled their father and the entire court. Every night, the king would personally escort his daughters to their shared bedchamber, a magnificent room with 12 beds arranged in perfect order, each covered with silk sheets and adorned with golden canopies. The room had only one entrance, which the king would lock securely with 3 different keys after bidding his daughters good night. He would then post guards outside the door throughout the entire night, ensuring that no one could enter or leave. Yet every morning, without fail, a most extraordinary sight would greet the king when he unlocked the chamber door. There, beside each bed, would be a pair of dancing shoes worn completely through, the soles full of holes, the silk torn to ribbons, as if the princesses had danced all night long on the roughest of floors. The shoes looked as though they had been danced in for months, though they had been perfectly new the evening before. The king was utterly mystified. How could his daughters' shoes be worn to tatters when they had been locked safely in their room all night? When he questioned the princesses, they would simply smile mysteriously and claim they had slept soundly through the night. They showed no signs of exhaustion, their faces were fresh and glowing, and they seemed as energetic as ever. Yet the evidence of their worn shoes was undeniable. This strange phenomenon occurred night after night, month after month, and the cost of new shoes was becoming enormous. More importantly, the king feared for his daughters' health and safety. Where could they possibly be going? How were they escaping from a locked and guarded room? Were they in danger? The mystery consumed his thoughts and worried him greatly. The king consulted with his wisest advisors, his most skilled wizards, and even brought in investigators from neighboring kingdoms, but no one could solve the puzzle. Some suggested the princesses might be sleepwalking, but sleepwalkers don't dance with such vigor that they wear holes through their shoes. Others proposed magic was involved, but what kind of magic, and why? Desperate for answers and growing increasingly concerned about his daughter's well-being, the king made a royal proclamation that echoed throughout the kingdom and beyond. Whosoever can discover where my daughters go to dance each night shall choose one of them for his wife and inherit my kingdom after my death. But if any man attempts this task and fails to solve the mystery within 3 days and 3 nights, he shall forfeit his life. The reward was magnificent: marriage to a beautiful princess and inheritance of an entire kingdom. But the penalty for failure was death, making this a challenge that only the bravest or most desperate would dare attempt. Soon, princes and knights from far and wide began arriving at the castle, each confident that he would be the one to solve the mystery that had stumped so many before him. They came with elaborate plans and theories, certain that their intelligence, charm, or cunning would succeed where others had failed. The first to try was a handsome prince from a neighboring kingdom. He was given a comfortable room adjacent to the princess's chamber, with the door left slightly ajar so he could observe their movements. The eldest princess, Amelia, brought him a cup of wine to help him stay alert through his vigil. The prince drank it gratefully, not suspecting that it contained a powerful sleeping potion. Within minutes, he fell into such a deep sleep that he didn't wake until the sun was high in the sky. When morning came, there were the 12 pairs of worn-out shoes, and the prince had seen nothing. The second night brought the same result, and the third as well. The prince had failed completely, and according to the king's decree, he paid with his life. This grim outcome did not deter others from trying. One by one, brave men attempted the challenge, and one by one, they fell victim to the drugged wine and faced the ultimate penalty for their failure. Middle of journey, the soldier's discovery. After many princes and nobles had failed and died, the king's proclamation had taken on an ominous reputation. Fewer men were willing to risk their lives for the chance at solving the mystery, no matter how great the reward. It seemed the secret of the 12 dancing princesses might remain forever unsolved. One day, an old soldier was traveling through the forest near the kingdom. He had served faithfully in many wars but was now too old and wounded to continue fighting. His hair was gray, his back was bent from years of carrying heavy armor, and his clothes were worn and patched. He walked with a slight limp from an old battle injury, and he carried all his worldly possessions in a small knapsack. As he rested by a stream, he encountered an old woman gathering herbs and berries. She was bent with age, her hair white as snow, and her eyes twinkling with an ancient wisdom. When she learned that the soldier was heading toward the king's castle, she shook her head sadly. "Are you perhaps thinking of trying to solve the mystery of the dancing princesses?" she asked with concern in her voice. The soldier admitted that he had indeed been considering it. What did he have to lose? He was old, poor, and had no family left. If he succeeded, he would gain a kingdom. If he failed, his struggles would be over. The old woman studied him carefully, seeing something in his weathered face that spoke of wisdom earned through hardship. "You seem different from the young princes who have tried before," she said thoughtfully. "They were driven by ambition and pride. You seek this not for glory, but because you have nothing left to lose. Perhaps that gives you an advantage they lacked." She reached into her basket and pulled out a worn gray cloak. "Take this," she said, pressing it into his hands. "It will make you invisible when you wear it. But remember, do not drink anything the princesses offer you. Pretend to drink, but do not let even a drop pass your lips. And follow them wherever they may go, but be silent as a shadow." The soldier accepted the cloak gratefully, wondering if the old woman might be a fairy or wise enchantress in disguise. He thanked her profusely and continued on his way to the castle. When the soldier arrived and announced his intention to attempt the challenge, the court was surprised. Here was no wealthy prince or noble knight, but a simple, aging soldier in patched clothes. Some courtiers whispered that he was surely going to his death, while others wondered if his military experience might give him insights that the younger men had lacked. The king, though moved by pity for the old soldier's obvious poverty, had to honor his proclamation. The soldier was given the same comfortable room adjacent to the princess's chamber, with the door left slightly ajar for observation. That evening, as expected, Princess Amelia appeared with a cup of wine. "Good sir," she said sweetly, "please drink this wine to help you stay awake through your vigil." The soldier took the cup gratefully and raised it to his lips. But remembering the old woman's warning, he only pretended to drink, letting the wine flow down into a sponge he had hidden in his beard. "Thank you, Your Highness," he said, appearing drowsy almost immediately. "This wine is indeed very strong." He allowed his eyes to close and his breathing to become deep and regular, as though he had fallen into the same drugged sleep that had claimed all the others. Princess Amelia watched him for several minutes to ensure he was truly unconscious, then returned to her sisters to report that their latest observer was safely asleep. The soldier waited patiently, listening through his pretended slumber as the 12 princesses began to stir in their chamber. He heard whispered conversations, the rustle of silk, and the soft sounds of preparation. When he was certain they believed him to be deeply asleep, he quietly donned the magical cloak. The moment the gray fabric settled around his shoulders, he looked down and gasped silently. He could no longer see his own body. The cloak had indeed made him invisible, just as the old woman had promised. Through the slightly open door, the soldier watched in amazement as the 12 princesses transformed before his eyes. Gone were their simple nightgowns, replaced by magnificent ball gowns of every color imaginable: emerald green, sapphire blue, ruby red, golden yellow, and silver that sparkled like stars. Their hair was elaborately arranged with precious jewels, and they moved with an excitement and anticipation he had never seen in them during the day. Princess Amelia approached a large tapestry on the far wall and pressed a hidden mechanism. To the soldier's astonishment, the tapestry swung aside like a door, revealing a secret staircase that descended into darkness. One by one, the 12 princesses began their descent, with Amelia leading and Lillian, the youngest, bringing up the rear. The invisible soldier followed them down the mysterious staircase, being careful to step lightly and remain silent. The staircase seemed to go on forever, winding deep beneath the castle and into the earth itself. Last moment, the underground kingdom and resolution. After what felt like hours of descent, the soldier began to see a soft, ethereal light emanating from below. As they reached the bottom of the staircase, he found himself in the most magical place he had ever imagined, an enchanted underground kingdom that seemed to exist in a realm between dreams and reality. The first marvel that greeted his eyes was a magnificent forest where every tree was made of gleaming silver. The leaves chimed like tiny bells when the gentle underground breeze moved through them, creating the most beautiful music the soldier had ever heard. The path through this silver forest was carpeted with what looked like crushed diamonds that sparkled under the mystical light. As proof of what he was witnessing, the soldier carefully broke off a small branch from one of the silver trees. The sound it made as it snapped was like the ringing of a crystal bell, and for a moment he feared he had been detected. Princess Lillian, who was walking at the rear of the group, paused and looked around. "Did you hear that?" she asked her sisters nervously. But Princess Amelia, eager to continue their journey, called back, "It was probably just the wind in the leaves. Come along, we mustn't be late." Beyond the silver forest lay an even more wondrous sight, a second forest where every tree was made of pure gold. The golden leaves rustled with a sound like heavenly harps, and the path was now carpeted with what appeared to be crushed pearls that glowed with their own inner light. Again, the soldier broke off a small golden branch as evidence, and again Princess Lillian paused at the sound, only to be hurried along by her eager sisters. The third forest was the most breathtaking of all, trees made entirely of diamonds that caught and refracted the magical light into millions of rainbow colors. The diamond leaves tinkled like wind chimes, and the path was now paved with precious gems of every color imaginable. The soldier took a diamond branch as his final piece of evidence, despite Lillian's growing suspicions about the strange sounds she kept hearing. At the edge of the diamond forest, the most spectacular sight of all awaited them, a vast underground lake of the deepest blue, its surface smooth as glass and glowing with phosphorescent light. Moored at a crystal dock were 12 magnificent boats, each one different and more beautiful than the last. The boats seemed to be made of mother of pearl and were decorated with precious metals and gems. Standing beside each boat was a handsome prince, but these were not ordinary princes, they were enchanted beings from the fairy realm, each one perfectly matched to one of the princesses. Their eyes held an otherworldly gleam, and they moved with an ethereal grace that marked them as creatures of magic. The princes helped the princesses into their respective boats, and as they began to row across the magical lake, the soldier quickly and quietly slipped into the boat with Princess Lillian and her prince. The boat rode lower in the water due to his invisible weight, causing the prince to comment on how heavy the boat seemed that night. "Perhaps it's the humidity in the air," suggested Princess Lillian, though she looked around nervously, sensing something was different about this evening. On the far shore of the lake stood a magnificent palace that seemed to be built entirely of light and music. Its walls were transparent crystal that reflected and magnified the glow of the underground realm, and from within came the most beautiful music, orchestras of instruments that played themselves, creating melodies that seemed to touch the very soul. Inside the palace, the most wonderful ballroom the soldier had ever seen awaited them. The floor was made of polished moonstone that seemed to glow from within, the walls were lined with mirrors that reflected infinite images of the dancers, and the ceiling was a dome of stars that twinkled and moved in slow, hypnotic patterns. Throughout the ballroom were other magical beings, fairy lords and ladies, enchanted nobles, and creatures of such beauty that they seemed to have stepped out of the most wonderful dreams. The music that filled the air was played by an orchestra of magical instruments that floated in the air, conducted by an invisible maestro whose presence could only be felt through the perfect harmony of the melodies. For the entire night, the 12 princesses danced with their fairy princes, and it was the most beautiful dancing the soldier had ever witnessed. They moved as if they were floating on air, their gowns flowing like water, their faces radiant with joy and enchantment. The dancing was so vigorous and passionate that it was no wonder their shoes were worn through by morning. They danced on floors of crystal and stone, spinning and leaping with supernatural grace and energy. The soldier watched it all from his invisible vantage point, marveling at the magic and beauty surrounding him. He understood now why the princesses were willing to risk everything for these knightly adventures. They had found a world of wonder and romance that far exceeded anything the ordinary world could offer. As dawn approached in the world above, the enchanted music began to slow, and the fairy princes escorted the princesses back to their boats. The return journey took them back across the glowing lake, through the forests of diamonds, gold, and silver, and up the long, winding staircase to the castle above. The soldier followed them every step of the way, and watched as they returned to their chamber, quickly changed back into their nightgowns, and placed their worn-out dancing shoes beside their beds before falling into their beds, exhausted but happy from their magical night. When morning came and the king unlocked their chamber door, he found the familiar sight of 12 pairs of shoes worn completely through. But this time, the old soldier was ready with the answer to the mystery. "Your Majesty," the soldier said, presenting himself before the king and the assembled court. "I have discovered where your daughters go each night." He told the entire incredible story, describing every detail of the underground kingdom, the forests of precious metals and gems, the magical lake, the fairy princes, and the enchanted palace where the princesses danced until dawn. To prove his tale, he produced the 3 branches he had taken, one of silver, one of gold, and one of diamonds. The court gasped in amazement at these impossible treasures, but the king still seemed skeptical until the soldier produced one final piece of evidence, the magical gray cloak that had made him invisible. "Ask your daughters, Your Majesty," the soldier said confidently. "They will confirm that everything I have told you is true." Faced with such detailed evidence, the 12 princesses had no choice but to admit the truth. They confessed to their nightly adventures, explaining how they had discovered the secret passage years ago and had been unable to resist the call of the magical world below. "We meant no harm, father," Princess Amelia said, tears in her eyes. "We only wanted to experience the wonder and magic that called to us. The dancing, the music, the beauty of that realm, it was like nothing we had ever known." The king was torn between anger at their deception and relief that they were safe. But he was also a man of his word, and he had made a solemn promise. He turned to the old soldier with newfound respect. "You have succeeded where princes and nobles have failed," the king said solemnly. "According to my royal decree, you may choose any of my daughters as your bride and will inherit my kingdom after my death. Which princess do you choose?" The soldier looked at the 12 beautiful princesses, each one lovely and unique. But his practical nature and kind heart guided his decision. "Your Majesty," he said, "I am no longer a young man to be choosing a young bride. If I may, I would choose Princess Amelia, your eldest daughter. We are closer in age, and I believe we would be well suited to each other." Princess Amelia, who had been expecting this choice, stepped forward gracefully. She had seen the soldier's wisdom and kindness in how he had solved their mystery without seeking to harm or shame them. "I would be honored to marry you, sir," she said with genuine warmth. The wedding was celebrated throughout the kingdom with great joy and festivities. The soldier, now a prince, proved to be a wise and just ruler, and Princess Amelia found happiness with a husband who valued her intelligence and spirit over her beauty alone. As for the other 11 princesses, the king, having learned the truth about their nightly adventures, decided to address the situation with wisdom rather than punishment. He had the secret passage sealed but arranged for regular balls and festivities at the castle, where his daughters could dance to their heart's content in safety and with appropriate partners from neighboring kingdoms. The magical underground realm, having been discovered and its secret revealed, gradually faded away, as many magical places do when they are no longer hidden. The fairy princes returned to their own realm, taking with them fond memories of their dancing partners. The princesses, while initially sad to lose their magical world, found new happiness in their ordinary lives, enriched by the memories of their extraordinary adventures. The old soldier lived out his days as a beloved ruler, never forgetting the kindness of the mysterious old woman who had given him the magical cloak. He often wondered if she had been a fairy godmother in disguise, sent to ensure that justice and wisdom would prevail over mere ambition and pride. And so the mystery of the 12 dancing princesses was solved at last, not through force or trickery, but through patience, wisdom, and the kind of practical intelligence that comes from a life of humble service and genuine compassion for others. The moral of the story. The tale of the 12 dancing princesses teaches us several important lessons. Wisdom and experience often succeed where youth and pride fail. The old soldier succeeded where young princes failed because he approached the challenge with patience, humility, and practical wisdom rather than arrogance and assumptions. Listen to good advice. The soldier's success came largely from following the old woman's guidance about the cloak and not drinking the wine. Being open to help from unexpected sources can make all the difference. Patience and observation reveal truth. Rather than rushing to conclusions, the soldier observed carefully and waited for the right moment to act, allowing him to discover the full truth. True love and happiness cannot be found through deception. While the princesses found temporary joy in their secret world, lasting happiness came only when the truth was revealed and they could be authentic in their relationships. Practical wisdom is more valuable than wealth or status. The humble soldier possessed qualities that the wealthy princes lacked: patience, resourcefulness, and genuine care for others' well-being. Justice should be tempered with mercy. The king could have severely punished his daughters for their deception, but instead he found a way to address their needs while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Everyone deserves understanding and compassion. The soldier didn't expose the princesses to shame them, but to solve a problem and ensure their safety. His approach led to a resolution that benefited everyone. The story reminds us that sometimes the greatest adventures and deepest mysteries in life can only be solved through patience, wisdom, and genuine concern for others rather than through force, wealth, or status.